Hey there, Kickstarter, Internet, and the world at large. I am Randall Lobb.
And I'm Rob McCallum.
It's true. He is.
True story. And we're here to give you an update for the next week or so and everything that's happened with Power of Grayskull, the definitive history of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Rand, we've had 5 pretty specific questions that have come our way in the last week or so, or since we last updated. I thought we could do just a little quick video update and kind of address all of these head on. What do you think?
The fans have spoken, and we are compelled to answer.
So the first question is, what's going to happen for the next 3 weeks of your campaign? 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks, depending on when this goes live. What do you think is going to happen for the next 3 weeks? It's kind of a little straightforward from where I sit, but anything that you want to share, what you hope to accomplish in the next 3 weeks?
This is 3 weeks that can make a huge difference in really what we are going to do in terms of planning our shoots. The production that we are about to go into, the undertaking before us is, well, it's a factor. I won't say how much a factor, but it's a factor again of this budget. Sometimes making a documentary like we're planning, people just immediately say $750,000.
Sure, yeah. Quite easily.
Once you travel, once you start looking at all the costs that go into trying to tell the biggest possible story, I was actually speaking with someone last week. He said this. He said, classically, documentaries cost $750,000, and they don't make much more than $750,000, so you'll break even. That was his, thumbnail metric that he said. And he does a lot of the kind of docs that would be, really baked into a certain interest. And in his case, it's marine biology. And they're.
Sure.
I said to him, I think it's different with the kind of docs that we do. Sometimes you can do them cheaper, right? You don't have to do these prestige pieces. You don't have to spend the same kind of money. You don't have to travel everywhere if you go to different conventions. So I think what happens for us in the next 3 weeks, we can start making this movie, but as we bring in more fans and as we have more people who buy this thing in advance, we let larger companies know this is serious, this is real, and the fans are there and they have needs and they want those needs met. And we can also tell people that we're making something that can get bigger as people allow it.
Yeah, the big takeaway there is we get to really define what the scope of this project is. I mean, it's one thing to go on a Kickstarter and say that you're going to make the definitive history of blank, which we are going to do, but the way in which we tackle that, the scope and the tools and the goodies that we get to use to give that definitive version, it's hugely different, right? Like that can grow and shrink depending on the kind of support. So my goal for the next 3 weeks of our campaign is to keep spreading the word. I had a really close friend today that I grew up with. I've known him for 20 years. He just discovered the project. You got to understand people on Facebook and on Twitter. Every time we share that link, it's dead 15 minutes later. You need to help us share it. You need to help us get the word out there. If you feel like you're being over inundated with it, we definitely apologize, but we're really trying to get the word out because the people that are closest to us that we interact with on a daily basis are only now just kind of discovering it. And this is, 2 weeks after we've launched and where we are. People have reached out this morning and said, wow, I can't believe how awesome your He-Man documentary is doing. I just discovered this today. And it's like, yeah, I talked to you on the phone last week. So like people are just discovering this stuff. So we really need to get the word out. And that means some help from you telling your favorite podcasts and newspapers and blogs about our project. That's the way that the scope of our film can really expand, I think.
Something that I notice is it's by clusters, right? The He-Man fan cluster, they know what's happening. They're tapped into what we're doing right now. But there are other pop culture clusters, and they don't know about this. And the overlap for their fan interest, it's here,
Yeah, I will take a page out of your book and say, if you go back and examine those Venn diagrams, those circles that overlap, it's not just He-Man and She-Ra fans. It's 80s, culture fans. It's toy fans. It's comic fans. It's animation fans. It's Star Wars fans. It's everything. So take a look at that. The next big question for you, though, Rand, is when does shooting begin? When do we start to shoot this?
The eerie silence. Well,
let's shoot this mother.
Here's a problem. We're trying to shoot as soon as possible. We're Canadians. 3 of us. Some of us are married to Americans. There's paperwork that has to happen, and we need to build that paperwork. People like Donald Trump don't want Canadians in the United States. I understand why. We're a tremendously difficult group to get along with, but we need to get our paperwork in order, and that does take some time, and it is quite a process. So there's that, but also there's a lot of stuff that has to be lined up logistically. We've reached out to so many people that we would interview, and just showing up at their house isn't something that can happen. We have to line it all up. We have to line up flights. We have to line up hotel stays, and then we have to figure out a piggyback kind of structure that works. We go here, we go here, we go here, we go here, and that all has to work in a way that, you don't want to waste a lot of time. You don't want to waste money. You want to build this in the smartest way possible. All that to say, I think if we are shooting something into May, does that make sense to you, Rob?
Yeah, very much so.
We're looking at May?
Yeah, I mean, the legalities aside with work visas and stuff for the other parts of the team, that actually really just buys us the time we need in order to get everything lined up. And again, it goes back to the other question, the scope. How do we want to tackle this? How does those decisions build into our shooting schedule? If we're going to do a lot of really awesome scenic stuff like you guys did on Conan, well, that takes time to figure out how that's going to be done and where it's going to be done. So we need that time to do this properly. You wouldn't just jump into an idea without the kind of research and the prep work. And the same thing goes for filmmaking. So we've got a lot of things to manage on top of what we do every day with our other projects as well. So everything's going to take some time, and we're hoping to target kind of, I would say, mid-May to late May, which, kind of leads us into our next question, which takes place in June.
Well, let me jump in here quick and say,
Sure.
For those fans who are looking for, are we sitting around on our hands,
Right.
until May? No, I would suspect, and Mark's right here beside me, but I would think we could pull Isaac into the FOPOP station here. And if we're collecting materials, we could begin to be documenting materials. We can be scanning stuff. We can be building some of those assets, much like everybody loved the teaser that we made. We can be building something like that. How do we highlight some of the objects that we want to show, the action figures, these pieces of value? We may take in some collectibles that we want to show. And I see April as being a great time for that. And maybe you can speak to that, Rob. If people start, giving us things that we can use that way, we can start to build that library of materials. And that's prior to interviews, but that's shooting as well.
Yeah, no, it's all part of the process. There's always something to do.
Mm-hmm.
If you do have fan art, fan sculptures, and you
Exactly.
can send us some images and some assets of that stuff, message us on our our Facebook page, or reach out to us at hemandoc.com. We'll send you a quick release material, access form that you got to sign to give it back to us, and then we'll try to find the best way that we can possibly include what you've done. So, we are very interested in that stuff. Speaking of fans, we've had the big question is, will you be at PowerCon?
Wouldn't that be a great time to really be in the thick of shooting?
Very much so. And I think that's the key, in the thick, not at the beginning, but kind of ramping up to something like that to kind of get, our wheels greased a little bit and kind of do something cool there. So, yes, I want to be at PowerCon. The people behind it have reached out to us.
If you were going to try and get fish, you want to go where the fish are. You don't want to be all over the place. And there will be some nice fish at PowerCon for our tasty bouillabaisse.
Very much so. And whether that's us just meeting some people to set up shoots down the road in a more controlled environment, or getting, some once-in-a-lifetime opportunities to chat with the people that'll be there, either way, it's going to be hugely important for us to kind of make use of that event.
And we have to meet Val and those guys. We have to get to know these people with whom we've spoken. And I don't want to say press the flesh, because that sounds creepy and political, but when you know someone, when you make contact with them face-to-face, it changes everything. And we want to know these fans in the community, and we want them to know us.
Sure. No, I agree. Speaking of communities, we've both worked on other projects that have community followings as well. Nintendo Quest and Turtle Power obviously have their own pop culture communities and fan bases behind us. And one of the big questions that we've been getting more and more as of late is there any way that you guys can include Nintendo Quest and Turtle Power in the rewards? So what do you think about that?
Well, I can't speak about Nintendo Quest. I probably can. I would think that you would have maybe more of a handle on Nintendo Quest than we have on Turtle Power, because we're dealing with a really big company, Paramount Pictures, and if we want to get Turtle Power DVDs shipped, That's a major commitment for us. We have to get them all. We don't have a stash. We don't have a big warehouse full of them. We have to go get them from manufacturer, and that means that it's a process. It's an application, and it's not unlike the process of getting those work visas. It's a multi-step process, and we started that just before Christmas. We have some of the paperwork in place, and we can find a way to do that and build that into a tier or build that into a reward, but it's not something that's very easily done. I'll say that honestly.
It's really the same thing on this end. It requires talking to the right people and letting that process begin. I have looked into it since the questions started rolling in. It is something that can take time, and my concern is, can I get the thumbs up, the green light before the end of the campaign, or be sure enough that it would be completed that if we offer it during the campaign that we can make good on that. Like, what everybody has to realize is both of those films, the rights are owned by other people than us right now. So we can't just magically make it available to anybody because it would be a good thing. We'd love to do that, and we're looking into it is the short answer. And if we can find a way to make it worth either as a separate reward tier that we can bundle that stuff with other stuff, or like the next thing that we're going to talk about, if we can build it into part of a stretch goal, then maybe that's something. Yes, there's that magic word that is the most frequently discussed thing when it comes to our campaign. Let's just jump right to that. Randall, will there be any more stretch goals added? As of this recording, we have only one left to knock off.
No, I think
doing pretty well.
We've done amazingly well, and we're very grateful and lucky and all of those good things. But there's a saying, you make your own luck. And if we build a stretch goal that's awesome enough, I think there's value in it if the fans agree. I think we could try something crazy. What do you think? We could build a stretch goal that's just nuts and, layer it with whatever we can come up with to make it a true value add for the fan of all fans, and maybe those people would get behind it.
Yeah, my concern is to not put a stretch goal out there for the sake of putting a stretch goal out there. So, I mean, in a campaign side, we always want to have something to go for. And once we knock this next stretch goal off, if we're fortunate enough to do so, people might feel like, okay, well, we've gotten everything. They're going to tune out. But I also don't want to put a stretch goal out there that's like $1 million and we promise the world, because it's not realistic. So you got to be really careful about what you do. It's a big tactical play. We want to offer something that we feel like we can achieve and that's worthwhile for you guys, the fans, and that we can pull off as well. We've already committed to a ton of stuff.
Oh, you mean we have to actually do? Oh, we have to deliver on it if we?
It's true. I know it's in the fine print. We say that we'll do this if you guys do that. It's out there. So
my theory is, if we can find something that gives that, I don't know how you call them, but the hardcore, the real deep fan, if we can give them something that. And again, this comes from our podcast interview with the guys the other night, right? They're very interested in us building something that contains all the layers that they want, and there are many layers that they would like to see. So if we can find a way to incorporate all that and give the value that those hardcore fans want, building a new stretch goal is a good idea. We don't want to manufacture a stretch goal just to somehow game the system. That is not suitable. That's not what we do.
No, I agree. It's got to be right. It's got to fit right.
Yeah.
And it's got to be something that we can accomplish. We're not a manufacturing company. We can't just produce widgets because people want them.
No.
It's got to be in our wheelhouse, and our wheelhouse is filmmaking. So there's a lot we can do with our skill set, but it's got to make sense. We can't promise you, the moon in regards to what we can do for you. So, but we are thinking about it, though.
What we can do is we can promise to try to get to the moon. And that's what we're building in the background right now, is we're scratching our heads, basically looking at our plans and saying, how do we configure something that really creates the drive that people want to come back and look at the campaign again. And Rob, you bring up a point. Some people haven't heard of it, and some people are tired of it. But
that's true. It's true. And I'll keep pushing. I know the people that are tired of it can tune out if they want to, but we've only got under 3 weeks left. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This is probably the only chance to secure your fan cut if you want this stuff. So please go to Kickstarter.com, search Power of Grayskull, visit our website, hemandoc.com, click there, pledge, just get that DVD, get your name in the end credits, be in the film if you want. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to support something that's really special.
And it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for us, too, because once we start this process, we're in it. And if somebody calls up and says, we want to distribute this movie, and that may or may not be happening behind the scenes right now, we want to be able to say to them, we have a commitment baked in from zero for our Kickstarter fans, and then that has to be part of the calculus of their decision-making, too. And if we don't have that all set, if somebody calls us afterwards or sends those angry emails, hey, I want this fan, the add-on, the bonus, whatever. And if we have a hard time building that because of a distribution structure, your hands get so tied by some of these arrangements.
Yeah.
Or can be. It could happen, but it also might, you never know. It's just up in the air. That's why you want to secure what you can now. You want to build. If there's something you're waiting for, I wouldn't wait much longer than this.
Get in now.
Yeah.
Get in now. Now's the time. So those are the major 5 questions that we've seen in the last week. Randall, any last words before we cut this short?
Well, we did have one question that comes up again and again about regions and unlocks and all that.
Sure.
Do you want to address that, Rob? Because I know you've answered each of those questions with about the same answer. And again, Rob and I are playing a game where if I think, I'll answer this, and he's answered it. He, I think, is sitting with Kickstarter open on some kind of a neural implant.
Google Glass, yeah.
There is no... how many have I done? 10% of these? Have I answered even 10 of them before you got in?
We're a team, Randall. We're a team, Randall. That's
anyway,
all I'll say.
The region concern is real because I can speak to Turtle Power, we didn't get a physical release across the world. It was North American physical media only, digital phased across regions. And that wasn't my decision or our decision in any way. It was the decision of the distributor. You might want to speak to what you've seen with Nintendo Quest.
Yeah, Nintendo Quest was easily about 60-40, maybe 70-30 domestic for international, so we had to figure that out really early on. And the short answer is all our discs are going to be region-free. It's very easy for us to manufacture everything that's part of Kickstarter, at least, to be a region-free setting, so you don't have to worry about it being NTSC or PAL, which caters to different signals in different part of the world, or CCAM if that still exists. But yeah, you'll have a way to enjoy this on disc if you're an international backer. So don't fret and pledge and get your copy today because, like Randall said with Turtle Power, this might go to disc as the 90-minute kind of broad general audience version and never go across the pond. May never leave North America in a physical form. So now's the time to secure that. It's a special opportunity.
And it certainly wouldn't be our decision. If we have our way, fans all around the world, collectors all around the world will get a collectible something. Because we know that those audiences who want to see these docs, they want to own these docs, and they want to have, if we get signed this or, some kind of collectible poster or materials, let's call them esoterica around the collectible piece. All that stuff is just good value that we want when we're collecting, and we want to give that to other collectors who are picking up something that we've made.
Agreed. All right, well, that'll do it for this week's update. We appreciate you following us and sharing all our information and getting behind us. Please continue to do so, and we will update you with the next event, be it our next stretch goal breaking, maybe, or at least next week when we start off one more week of our campaign. So for myself, Rob McCallum, and of course, Randall Lobb,
I'll say good night, goodbye, good morning, good day, and good luck.
We'll see you next time.
Cheers.
For to those that control Grayskull will come the power.